Hello everyone, today I'll be narrating 3 new creepyposts that I found off of the Let's Not Meet subreddit. Liking this video and subscribing to my channel helps me a lot. After you've heard these stories, let me know what you think of them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's dive straight into their experiences.
These are their stories.
For the longest time, there was this man that would sit in his garage and watch me. He was an older man and he was very scrawny. He had patchy gray hair and a super gross beard. I never learned his name, so we'll call him Nick. He looked like a Nick to me. I moved into my classic suburban home before I was even born. I've been living here my whole life, and the first memory I have of Nick was when I was 10 and he gave me a small 2-finger wave as I walked back home after school. I had to see him every day since my bus stop was a few houses down and I walked like a block to get home. My mom said he dropped by after I was born, knocked on the door in the middle of the day and rang the doorbell until someone answered. My mom finally answered, my 1-year-old brother attached to her leg and newborn me in her arms. She said his face lit up when he saw me. He smiled brightly and asked to hold me. She obviously denied, cause who comes to your house to hold your child when you don't know them in the slightest? She said he scowled at her before calmly walking back to sit in his garage to smoke a cigar. After my first encounter with Nick, I never stopped seeing him. Every day after school, every morning before school, every time I took my dogs out for a walk, every time I peeked out of my window at 3 a.m. I swear this guy never slept. I told my brother how it freaked me out and he said he was probably on house arrest and that was the only way he could get out. We learned that wasn't true when he knocked on our door. Small background for this bit, my mom is very weak. She has an autoimmune disease and her legs and feet will go numb randomly. She's doing a lot better now, but this event happened when she was pretty bad. She insisted she take the dogs out alone and I didn't want to argue, so I sat in the living room. After about a minute I hear a knock. I yell out that the door's unlocked, thinking it's my mom, but there's a louder knock. I get up and go to the door, I open it and there he is, smiling at me. Hey hun, your mom fell off the porch, you might want to help her, Nick states, giving me goosebumps. His voice was unreal, so raspy and sounded like he was in the process of choking. He leaves very quickly and I hurry to help my mom off the grass. Calling my younger brother to get the 2 dogs inside, I gave her the I told you so speech and she grumbled about it for weeks. My younger dog, a pit bull made of 98% muscle, got excited when she saw a bird. She pulled to get the bird and yanked my mom off the porch. She was standing behind a pot and tripped over it on her way down, making the fall hurt a lot more. She had a black eye and her legs were scratched up. The pot of flowers that she tripped over was smashed, but she was okay otherwise. Flash forward to my 13th birthday and my mom's in the hospital, so my dad goes all out, letting me invite a lot of my friends over for a sleepover, making us dinner and breakfast and just letting me have an amazing time. There's a park across from my suburb that I walk over to sometimes. I decided that I wanted to take my friends there to chill before their parents picked them up. The night before we were looking out the window and giggling about the man. I know it's creepy and we were 13, so they knew he was weird. I told them to ignore him if he talked to them, but I didn't take my own advice. Hey Rosie, he said it so quietly I barely heard him. My name is Rose and Rosie is a nickname my grandfather often used. I never told this guy my name, neither did any of my family members. Hi, I replied and my friends all scowled at me, knowing I screwed up. How's your mom? She's fine. I go to leave before I pause. How do you know my name? You told me, remember? No, I don't, because it didn't happen, but I wanted to get away, so I agreed. Oh right, I chuckle. Me and my friends scurry off to the park. The next day there's a box of chocolates sitting on the porch, a note with Rosie and Chicken Scratch writing on top of it. I pick it up and look over at the guy. He waves and I can see that his left hand has disappeared into his pants. Gross. I leave the box out there and tell my dad. The next morning me and my dad take our dogs out. No man. I figured he gave up after he saw me reject his chocolates. A few weeks later a large family moves into the house and I hadn't seen a trace of the man until yesterday. I'm 15 now and the woman who lives in the guy's house comes over yesterday. Does a Rosie live here? She asks. I had answered the door and my heart drops at the nickname from the stranger. Yeah, why? She hands me an envelope with my full name written on it. The guy who lived in the house before us said to give Rosie this on her birthday. It's not Rosie's birthday. I was trying to pretend I'm not Rosie. Oh well, I just took a guess. He didn't give us a date. Have a good day. My dad opened the envelope wearing a mask cause I quote, what if he filled it with cocaine? The note inside just said love you in his writing, red ink, my favorite color. I was about 5 or 6. I went to my local kindergarten and I was as carefree as a child can be. The greatest of my worries being if my mom forgets to pick me up from school. She never does and every day we walk from school to home and vice versa since it was a good walking distance. We lived in a compound that's kind of secluded and mostly inhabited by old people or boarding students who went to the university near it. This morning started out like any other. My mom picks me up and we're walking along the small path in our compound along with 4 other people, 3 high schoolers, 2 of which were walking together together, and a female college student. She was holding a handkerchief over her head because of the heat. The sun was high up and glaring in the middle of the day that you wouldn't expect anything to happen, but it did. We were quite far back from this group when I turn around and see a man join us. He's clearly not from there. He had a bright neon green bag in front of him which was slightly opened, one of his hands inside of it. His clothes were kind of dusty, but most of all he was glaring at us. It was just us 5 walking in this quiet compound, and my little self didn't think much of it, up until my mom squeezed my hand and started speed walking. At first I was confused, but I knew the only thing that could trigger this was that there was a danger behind us, and it came in the form of the stranger that was following us closely behind. I kept looking back discreetly, although it was probably obvious, and still he kept staring at all of us, getting closer and closer. I looked up at my mom trying to ask what was going on, but her low murmurs didn't really translate well for me, except my ears picking up on the word knife. That's when I felt my stomach drop. My stupid little legs weren't fast enough. Factor in my mom's older age, she was around 50, compared to our other companions. We were the easy target. We were pretty much at the back, but our house was near and I focused on that, because if I thought about the threat behind us, my legs would feel like jelly and I'd end up slowing down. Still, I couldn't resist looking back. He just kept getting closer and closer, shortening the distance between us. I remember thinking about how I wanted to scream for help, desperately looking at these houses that seemed empty, wanting to go inside, but my mom's firm grip kept me going. Anyways, we lived here too. I never really knew if the others were aware of it, not much until later. One of the high schoolers left to a house over the basketball court, and further down the path veered off to a different trail that led to the main highway, so it was just us and the female college student. Goody. At this point, the man was also speed walking and catching up, but our apartment was merely a few steps away, and my mom and I dashed towards it, up the stairs and into the comfort of our own home. The man gave us one last glare, but he continued to walk. My heart was pounding against my chest. My mom had left me to lock the door while she stared out the window. She kept repeating, "He has a knife, I saw it. He's holding a knife." I run towards the window and catch a glimpse of the girl, still clutching that handkerchief above her head, looking behind her in fear and alarm as the man continued to follow her, his bright neon bag in front of him, now wide open, his hand still inside, as he kept getting closer and closer. I don't really know what happened after, only of my mom's recollection of the events. She had noticed the man suddenly come up behind us too, and her suspicions were raised when he didn't try to walk past us like the others, but maintain a close distance between us. And then she saw the knife hidden in his bag, holding onto it as he stared at us. I hope that girl's okay and that man was detained or something, but it's been years now and I don't really know what happened to her. Don't really know if I'd like to. This happened about 5 years ago. I was around 16 to 17 years old. I always enjoyed walking. I would spend at least 1 hour a day walking the roads around where I lived. One day I was out doing my normal route, walking down my street that my house was on, taking a right out to the main street, and following it until I got to the end. There I would cross the crosswalk and retrace my steps to go home. On this particular day, I was about 20 feet from where I would leave the main road on my journey back home. I had my headphones in, blasting music as always, which can be a bad habit as I was young walking alone, but since it was daylight and the roads were pretty busy, I figured I was safe. But man, was I ever off with that assumption. As I was about to pass the entrance of a side street before leaving this main road, a black Ford F-150 pulled up. He stopped and gestures for me to walk in front of him, so I do so. I was about to go on my merry way when I barely heard someone trying to talk to me. I turned down my music, taking out my headphones as I looked to see the man in the black Ford still stopped at the entrance of the side road. I looked at him puzzled, trying to figure out if he was talking to me. I pointed at myself and he grinned, nodding. "What's a beautiful girl like you doing out here?" he asked. I laughed awkwardly. Walking," I replied, seeing as the answer should have been obvious. "It's a beautiful day for that," he commented, just seeming to make small talk. "Yeah," I stated before going to turn around and continue my route home. "Wait," the man called. I stopped and turned around, just trying to be polite. Even though the encounter was odd, I didn't see too many red flags yet. The man continued to compliment me. I grew incredibly uncomfortable at this point, seeing as this man had to be in his mid-40s. He had a bit of a receding hairline with black hair, a nose with a protruding bridge, blue eyes that were surrounded by slight wrinkles, and it was dressed in a dress shirt, so I instantly brought up my age. I was hoping saying this would get this fully grown adult man to back off, but he didn't. "Oh, that's okay, come on sweetheart, get in the truck." That's when I started panicking, red flags shooting up everywhere. Stranger danger. I laughed nervously, looking at the cars around me to see if anyone was noticing what was happening. Nobody did. "No, that's fine, my house isn't far." "No, really, get in the truck, I'll bring you home." "No." "Come on, just get in here with me." He called as I turned and started walking away. I was hoping he'd just drive off somewhere somewhere else, but he didn't. Instead, he drove extremely slow, following me, complimenting me, and trying to pressure me into his truck. I thought fast of multiple options for different scenarios, but I chose a simple one. I pulled out my phone, and while still walking, I lifted it up to my ear, pretending to loudly answer a call. "Hey dad, yeah no, I'm just on Interstreet name here. I'll be home in about 10 minutes. I stopped pretending to listen to her reply. "Okay, you're outside waiting for me? Awesome, yeah we can do that when I get back. Love you." After he heard me say that, he took off, tires screeching. I ran back home and made it back within about 6 minutes, actually calling my dad on the way, who made a call to the police, who showed up shortly after and took my statement and description. Turns out there was a man on the loose in my area who was exposing himself to kids and trying to pick them up. Alright, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Let me know what you thought of these stories in the comments below. But as always,
Have a nice day.